friends, it's Christy. So excited to be back with you on the Lawnfawn YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using caroling mice, cheesy Christmas, Christmas before and afters, beachy Christmas, and car critters Christmas add-on. So I've stamped my images in Lawnfawn jet black ink and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I'm going to begin with my mice, and I wanted to go for some dark gray mice for today's card. I typically go with like a soft gray or a brown or like a grayish, so I just wanted to mix it up today and try something a little bit different. The combo that I'm using is T0, T1, T3, and T5. And I am going to lay in my shadows first with the T5. I'm going to do all 4 of these mice exactly the same so they look like a little unit. So I am laying in my shadows depending on where their faces is. I like to put my shadows on the back of the body so that the faces are nice and highlighted so you can really make out those adorable features. So I am going to do that first, and then I'll come in with the T3 and begin to blend that out. I want the blend to be really nice and soft, so I'm making sure to go over the edge of the previous shade and pull that into the mid-tone so that everything is nice and smooth. I don't want to leave behind any harsh lines, but I will leave a little bit of room on the center of their faces and the front of their body, and I'm going to fill that in with my highlight shade, which is going to be the T1. So the T0 I am only saving for the belly and the feet and the insides of the ears. And if you're looking for more ways to color mice, I do have a video on 8 ways to color the Lawnfawn mice on my channel, so definitely check that out if you're interested. I really love how many different mice sets there are from Lawnfawn and how easy it is to mix and match these on a card. You would never know from looking at these that these are from different stamp sets, but the 2 on top are actually from Cheesy Christmas and the 2 down at the bottom are from the Caroling Mice stamp set. And there are so many other mice that I could have pulled into this scene if I had had more room. So I'm moving on now to adding some rosy cheeks, coloring in the insides of their ears and their noses, and I'm using R11, R20, and R22 for that. Starting with that R22 and laying in a little bit of an oval shape on the cheek, filling in the nose and adding a touch of that to the inner ear. And then I'll blend that out with the R20, just going right around the edges of the cheeks to kind of soften that up, and also adding that to the inner ear. I'm going to add some of that to the little feet as well because I love mice with little pink feet. And then I'll blend that out even further with the R11, which just really softens it into the rest of the fur tone. Next, I'm going to bring in a red combo. I'm going to keep that R22 and add in R24 and R29. And I'm going to color in all of their hats to be little Santa hats. So I'm adding that R29 in first. I'm also going to do the ribbons on the various gifts in red. And I will add that to the little pail, which is from Beachy Christmas. I am going to add it to 2 of the gifts in the little stack. That is from the Car Critters Christmas add-on. And then the other one, I'm going to have red wrapping paper on the one in the center. So I just quickly did all of those laying in that R29 so I don't have to switch back and forth between markers. And now I'm coming in with that R24 and blending things out. Some of the areas that are super duper small, I just use the 2 shades, but wherever I felt that I could squeeze it in, I did add in that R22, which adds such a nice little highlight. It's kind of got a salmony pink tone to it, which I think is just really beautiful and lovely for the holidays. For my pail, I added my darkest shadow to the outside edges, and blended toward the center so that it would look nice and rounded, like it was reflecting the light. And then I'm also going to do every third bauble on the Christmas tree. I'm only going to use the darkest two shades on there since it is quite a small area. And I will also use the darkest two shades to do the little tree skirt down at the bottom. I really wanted there to be lots of little pops of red on this scene. I just think it's so festive and fun for the holidays. Next, I'll bring in a golden yellow combo. I'm using Y11 and Y13 with YR21 and YR24. I'm going to use this for all of my cheeses. Starting with the YR24, I'm adding a little bit of that down at the bottom, and then anywhere that there is a line and also in the little holes. I'll use these shades for the bell that is in the little mouse's hand. And again, I'm going to do every third little bauble on the Christmas tree. So I did all of my YR24 first, and then I'm coming in with the YR21 to blend that out. I wanted the cheese to look nice and aged, and then I'm going to come in with the Y13, which is going to really warm up that combo and give it that golden hue. For the little bell, I just use those three shades. For the baubles on the Christmas tree, I just used the YR24 blended out with the Y13. But for the cheeses, I did add a little bit of Y11 in there. I'm also going to use all four shades for my light in my lamp post, and I'm just starting at the bottom with the darkest and blending up as I go toward the top of that lamp post. So we have a nice little glow in there. I'm also going to do this flat round gift because I wanted that to be a wheel of brie. So I just colored it to look like the box of brie that we always buy. And then I am also going to do this star on the Christmas tree. And I forgot to do the stand that's holding up the star, but I'll go back and catch that later. Then I'm going to move on to a kind of beige brown tone. I'm using E51, E53, and E55. I use that E55 for the handle of the bell. It's such a small area that I just use the one shade. I'll use all three for my bench and also the trunk of my Christmas tree. And so I'm just blending from the outside in on that bench and from the right to the left on the Christmas tree. And then I also wanted that little gift bag to look like it was made out of craft paper. And this is a great combo for that. So I just used the same exact shades. And then I used the E55 for the inside to make it look shadowed. Then I'm going to switch to some greens. I'm using G40, G43, and G46. I'll use this for my wreath, for the little Christmas tree on that gift bag. I'll also use it for my actual Christmas tree. And I am just adding a little bit of darkness anywhere that there would be shadows. So up under each layer and then also up under each layer of baubles. So using the G46 for that, and then I'm going to blend out with the G43. Since the area between the layers and baubles was so small, I just used those two shades on the tree. I'm going to give the little mouse that is ringing the bell a green Christmas sweater, so I will add some shading to that again with that G46. And the little sitting mouse is going to have a green scarf to go with his red Santa hat. So just added those since they're right next to each other. I'm using the same marker, just going back and forth, and then blending out with the G43 and then adding the G40 for a highlight. I forgot to go back up and finish my Christmas wreath, so I will do that. And then I'm also going to do the bow on the center gift in this green combo, just to kind of break up all of that red. And then I wanted to bring in some turquoise, so I'm using BG10 with BG53 and BG57, and I'll do a little turquoise sweater on the mouse that has his arms thrown up in the air with the snowflake on it. I'll also do the bottom gift in that stack in blue, and I'll finish off the baubles on my Christmas tree. So I'm blending out that BG57 with the BG53, and all of those areas were pretty small, so I only used those two shades on that, but I will use that BG10 to add a little bit of shading to the top gift so that it looks white, also to that snowflake and all of the white parts of the Santa hats. All that's left is to do the supports on that bench. I used the T5 for that, and then I trimmed these images out with their matching dies. For my background, I'm using a piece of Bristol smooth surface cardstock and die cutting that with the Riverside backdrop landscape. And I am going to pop out the river, but leave the rest of this intact for now. I just find it easier to blend when it's together because it's just a bit more supported. So I'm going to add some salvaged patina to the center part where I'm having that land mass be snow, and I just wanted to give it a bit of a frosty glow. So I'm starting on the sky portion and blending onto the area that is going to be my snow, and also adding it to the edges close to the river. And then I'll pop out the sky portion, set the main piece aside for now, and I'm going to continue blending on this using some peacock feathers, and I'll bring that right down onto the salvage patina, just leave a little bit of that salvage patina at the very bottom, and then I'll blend that back out. And then I'm going to bring in some chipped sapphire to darken this up and make it look like a nice winter sky. I'll bring that in from the corners and across the top, just deepening that color. I love how the salvage patina and the peacock feathers and the chipped sapphire all blend together so well. So I'm just going to work my way back and forth until I'm happy with that blend, adding a bit more of that chipped sapphire to darken up the sky, and then blending out one last time to smooth things out. And then I want to distress this and make it look like a starry or snowy sky. So I'm going to start with some plain water and just spritz that onto an acrylic block, tap that onto the background, let that water soak in and react with those distress oxide inks for about 30 seconds, and then blot that up with a paper towel. So now we've got some far away distant flakes or snow. Then I'm going to add a second layer using the pearlized shimmer in the gansai tambi starry colors. And then I'm going to add a third layer of white snow or stars using some white acrylic paint. I'm just mixing that up because mine is pretty dried out, and then tapping that all over the background as well. So now we've got all those layers of white dots that I think is really effective. I'll set that aside to dry and bring back my river piece, which I'm going to turn into a road using the new cobblestone stencil. And I'm going to add some hickory smoke distress oxide ink. So I'm just holding that firmly in place and blending over that with the hickory smoke. I wanted it to be kind of a soft background, and so I'm just adding a nice thin layer on that. And then I'll come back in with that hickory smoke and just darken up the edges slightly, just so it's a little bit faded. I wanted this cobblestone to look old and kind of worn, and so I just wanted to have that little bit of blend on there. And then I'm also going to distress it by adding some of that ink onto the acrylic block, mixing it up with some water, and then tapping that all over the background. Just going to give it a little bit more texture and interest. Once I like how that's looking, I will set this piece aside to dry. And then I'm going to start working on my card base. So I have popped a piece of mermaid cardstock into my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp on the inside in peacock ink. I'm using some images from the caroling mice and a sentiment from the cheesy Christmas. And it says, "We Swiss you a Merry Christmas," which I thought was really fun. It's going to go along with the sentiments on the outside of the card as well. I'm going to stamp that down a couple of times to make sure it's nice and bold and solid. And then I also wanted to add the mice carols into the front of the book. And then I'll just set that aside. And now I'm ready to start assembling everything. So I'm going to take that frame piece from the Riverside backdrop portrait, and I'm going to add some glue tube to the back of this, just making sure I get that glue all over so everything will be adhered down well. And then I will line that up with the outside edges of that card base. Make sure it's on there nice and straight, and then smooth it down into place. And then putting this little scene together is just like fitting together an easy puzzle. So I'm going to take the sky portion and just pop that into the missing space at the top. And then I'll take the riverside portion, which is going to be our street. Make sure that I add liquid glue to even the fine little areas on there so that everything is stuck down well. And then I'll just slot that into the bottom area. Super easy to do. I'll bring in my images, but before I adhere those down, I'm actually going to add a frame. I use the largest of the stitch rectangle frames, die cut that out of some lobster cardstock, lined the back of that with some thin strips of Scotch 3M foam tape, and I see that I had just a little missing corner there, so I'm going to add a tiny piece there so it's all well supported. And then I'll line that up on the outside edges of that landscape backdrop and press that down into place. And that red frame is just going to really pull this whole scene together. I'm going to start adding my images now, and I wanted that Christmas tree and the lamp post to kind of balance out each other, one on the left and one on the right. So I'm going to add those first, again just using my liquid glue because I wanted those to be kind of pushed into the background a bit. Once I've got those spaced how I want them, I'll grab the next image, which is going to be that bench. And this one I'm going to pop up with some foam tape toward the top of that snowbank. I'll take the decorative gift bag and add that below the Christmas tree over on the left. And then I will take the little Christmas wreath from the Card Critters Christmas add-on and add that to my lamppost. So I'm pulling those green shades all the way across to the right-hand side. Then I'm going to take the sitting mouse, and I added a little piece of foam tape right behind his ears where his head is extended above that bench, but otherwise I used the glue tube to attach him. And then beside him, I'm going to add that stack of Christmas gifts. So my concept for this card was that all of these mice were kind of out doing their Christmas shopping and they're crossing through the town square. So this little mouse is tired and he's having a little rest before he continues. So I also added that little wrapped Gouda right below him, right below the bench. Then I'm going to have the mouse that is ringing the bell over near the Christmas tree, and I am going to give him the little red pail that is beside him so that he can be collecting donations for the needy. I'll take that little trail of music notes and attach that to the sky just above his bell that he's ringing. And then I'm going to add one of the little mice that are carrying cheese down onto the cobblestone road. And then the other little mouse with his arms thrown in the air. And he was carrying that block of cheese, but he set it down because he was so excited to greet his friend. And then I'm just going to finish this little scene off with a couple of sentiments that I stamped using the All the Speech Bubbles set. So all that's left to finish off this card is to add a bit of sparkle, and I'm really going to go to town on this one. I especially love adding sparkle to Christmas cards. So I'm going to add it to all of the snowy edges of the scene, just kind of using the nozzle to smear that out a bit so it's not too concentrated and just gives it that nice little shimmer on the edges. And you could stop there, but of course I didn't. I added it also to the little tree on the gift bag and to all of the baubles on my Christmas tree and to the star. I added it to the bell that the mouse is ringing and all of the ribbons on my gifts and the cheese and also the bow on the Christmas wreath. So lots and lots of sparkle on this one, but that is just how I like it. So that is going to finish off this card. I will lift that up so you can see it in a bit more detail, catch some of that sparkle and shine, and I'll give you another peek at the inside. I had so much fun creating this city center shopping scene with these adorable mice, so I really hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, please go ahead and give the video a like and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in the next. Bye-bye!